Okay, so welcome and thank you for joining me on what is set to be a powerful webinar jam-packed with insights. We're going to take you through why mail should be part of your marketing, what is already available to you with Ometria and ZAP Post, and crucially, why now is such a key time for offline channels. So, if we haven't met before, hello, I'm Grace. For over 14 years now, I have been creatively and strategically supporting many big name businesses globally with their design and marketing. At ZAP, I'm available to consult on designs, be a second set of eyes, or clients can fully hire me to tackle all of their creative. Prior to my time here, I did 10 years on the client side, looking after design for a luxury interiors retailer. So not only have I seen the changing landscape, believe me, I have lived it too. I personally am a firm believer that there is no time like the present for human, tangible forms of connection. Without fail, I always have a stack of backup greetings cards just in case someone's birthday creeps up on me. But extending beyond that, physical mail is also an untapped marketing strategy that I'm very, very glad that you've joined me here today to learn all about. It's now my absolute pleasure to hand you over to Ometria's wonderful Rita.
Thanks, Grace. Hi, everybody. I'm Rita. I'm the Director of Customer Strategy at Ometria. I've been with the business for over 10 years now, and I've had the pleasure of working with the majority of our client base, and that's across multiple verticals within retail. So I've worked with fashion, beauty, consumables, homewares, you name it, and mostly have been advising them on data-driven strategies that really focus on customer experience as the core lever for long-term value. And more recently, I've been leading a team that's using AI to explore our wealth of retail data in looking for commercial opportunities for brands to optimize for customer profitability. And I look forward to sharing some of that today with Grace and Andrew. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Rita. Hi, all. I'm Andrew, co-founder at ZAP. We've been a partner with Ometria for over 10 years now, and prior to that, I was actually a client on the other side of the fence. So a lot of experience with Ometria and seen how it's grown over the last decade or so. So this session is for both veteran direct mail users who have long used print and those who are brand new to the channel. To answer the question as to the why now, I think it's basically distilled down into two reasons. One is technology, and regardless of your past experience with direct mail, the way it's being executed with Ometria specifically is definitively new. And if we combine that with Ometria's Architect AI, it's an awesome tool enabling the right message across the 8 different channels that Ometria now serves, and always at the right time. It becomes an incredibly powerful tool. So this new sort of integrated approach is different from existing DM methods you may have been using in the past. Ometria, the integration with ZAP is bi-directional, developed over a long period of time. Its key points are, and I won't dwell on these, but I just want to highlight them, is the fact that the Ometria journeys are now pushing profiles to ZAP Post in real time in a customer journey. Additionally, ZAP is actively pulling profiles from segments created by Architect AI, putting those profiles into ZAP Post on a daily basis. Third point is that direct mail events that happen are constantly being pushed back into Ometria, which is enabling a couple of things, but real-time customer journeys directly as a result of something happening. We'll talk about that more. And also profile updates. So whenever things change, like we're updating addresses, cleaning the data, all of that data is then being pushed back in, so you're maintaining enterprise-grade data the whole time. And you, of course, got, which you really haven't had to date, is a really strong view, a cast iron view of return on advertising spend. And the second reason is we need to talk about trust and noise in today's digital age. It's a common concern for all of us with so much information sort of bombarding us constantly. And as consumers, we're overwhelmed by content. We need to consider the fact that people are spending 3 hours a day on social, getting 120 emails every day. And it's a fact that our collective attention span can now be measured in fractions of a second, which is a bit of a worry. So adding to this, we're encountering, can I say this, irresponsible, occasionally lazy uses of AI by some brands, leading to things like chatbot failures. There was a classic example of a brand who was not enabling any human contact, in fact, not even enabling refunds last week. So that's one thing that is further eroding customer trust. My latest obsession is AI slop. But all of these examples contribute to the challenge of misinformation. Talking of AI slop, we created this image for a bit of fun yesterday, and there's a deliberate error in here. If you can find it, please use the Q&A button at the bottom and tell us if you managed to find the deliberate error. Talking of Q&A, we should have some time at the end of this session. So if you've got any questions, please fire them into the Q&A section at the bottom, and we'll address those at the end. As we navigate the landscape that we've got, I think it's essential that we focus on responsible, both digital and physical marketing strategies to help rebuild any trust that has eroded and engage with our audiences more meaningfully. So in this session, we're going to demonstrate how DM is having such a strong resurgence and gaining significant traction as an additional channel in the marketing mix. And we're also going to address a couple of myths and some facts, how this channel can and should slip seamlessly into your marketing mix. We've got some real life examples to share with you, but for now, I'll hand it back to Rita.
Thanks, Andrew. So taking a step back, just in terms of setting up the scene for how you actually begin with understanding where the opportunity is. We typically, as a retail brand in a marketing team, in a CRM team, we have multiple channels at our disposal via which we can market to customers. For most CRM teams, the most common direct channels are typically email, SMS, push notifications. And now quite often these channels live in silos, right? If you don't have a customer data platform, they typically exist in their own tech provider. They have their own tech structure, their own ROI, and often with no communication between them in the customer unification sense. So the real magic happens when you do have them all connected in a customer data platform, and it can allow you to shift the approach from just sending messages to really orchestrating an experience that maximizes value for each and every single customer you have on the base, whilst obviously also allowing you to be as cost efficient as possible. So where does direct mail fit here, and how do we size up that opportunity? And we think, and there's a few questions on the slide, but the methodology is actually quite simple. First, we'd start with reachability. So looking at your database today, dividing it up based on the level of permission you have to market across channels like email and SMS, and looking at the portion that is opted out. How much is that? Is that 50%? Is that 40%? Is it actually more? Typically, that slice of customers then become available for, eventually, if they don't repurchase, if they don't come back, they typically become available for paid media activity, social ads, all of that. So we really think it makes sense to look at direct mail for this portion right here. It can be a great channel to add to the mix, and it can really break through. The second way of sizing up that opportunity is based on engagement. again, if you have a CDP and you're able to look at your channels holistically, you can understand, what customers are actually signed up for all these channels, either multiple channels or just one, but haven't been engaging, in which case maybe there's a case to look at, for example, unengaged high spenders, and they should be worth the time and effort for a direct mail activity. And finally, the third thing to look at would be sort of budget efficiency. So, and it's a big one for the bottom line, right? If you have a CDP, it allows you to prioritize low cost, high volume channels first, like email. But then they give you the chance of looking and escalating to paid or higher cost channels where necessary. And so when you take this exercise of really understanding the health of your database in this way, you start to see gaps. You see customers who are unreachable digitally, those who have simply tuned out from the digital noise. They're not opening your emails. They're not opening your SMS or muting their push notifications, but they are still valuable segments. They're still customers you want to engage with. And this is where direct mail really becomes sort of a secret weapon. It allows you to break through that noise and digital clutter. And by sending a physical personalized message directly to their home, we can re-engage those audiences that we're otherwise losing. And the point is that you're leveraging data that you have that can make that experience really count. You can leverage your categories, you can leverage your product affinities towards this. You can use any sort of data that you have available as part of these kind of profiles that are very rich, and really make sure that when you do send that direct mail, that is used fully, making that really count. Over to the next one. So how does this all come to life? On the screen, you have an example of a setup. It's actually really seamless to integrate Ometria with ZAP. The Ometria experience orchestration layer makes it possible for you to make decisions and integrate directly within any automation journey, or simply use it for advanced targeting. There are two ways you can leverage Ometria and ZAP together. So one is you can sync a segment directly from one to another. So you can create a segment in Ometria, for example, VIPs who are at risk, and you can straight away send them into ZAP and create a high impact direct mail campaign. No CSVs, no exporting and uploading, none of that. The second part, which is when it gets really powerful, is that you can integrate direct mail within your automation journeys, just like any other traditional CRM channel. You can see that on the screen. In this flow, Ometria will act as the brain. It will check for a customer's marketability into the so-called, cheaper channels in real time. And if they're opted out, then you can automatically trigger a ZAP to ZAP post. So the integration will handle the rest, printing and posting that personalized message without you ever having to, again, export data and do that kind of offline. So it makes direct mail kind of really as agile and automated as can be. And then the good side is that we also get the data back in real time and in great extents that you can use to measure it. But the ZAP team will cover that shortly. Great, over to you.
Thanks, Rita. That's great. The purpose is really, we're talking about triggers. And these triggers are obviously all originating in Ometria. The kind of triggers that are being used frequently now, as Rita alluded to, lapsed customers or at-risk customers is probably the most prevalent. Abandoned basket is also a frequently used campaign. I know Grace has got an example of one of those later on. VIP segments, and also one that gets missed, I think, sometimes is new customers. It's about building relationships. So when, unless you're engaging with that individual who's made a first purchase, a first time with your brand, putting their trust in you to service that purchase, unless there's something in parcel that is engaging that customer and giving them the brand story, then following up with a brand story as part of a DM campaign has not necessarily direct ROI, but it's certainly a great tool for brand building. Other uses are events, definitely new seasons, capsule drops. They are key moments to send campaigns to specific audiences. Around data, the subject of data, when you do decide to do a DM, because your audience hasn't necessarily opted into DM, does not mean that they are opted out. Okay, you do have to give customers or recipients of direct mail the ability to opt out of receiving further DM. You can do that by way of either a preference center or even just put an unsubscribe email on each DM piece. But as long as you've got that, you are certainly compliant. The other thing to note here is that you obviously need an address to send a piece of direct mail to a customer. And as part of that address, particularly when you're dealing with lapsing campaigns, when maybe you haven't communicated with that customer for a year, there are two levels of validation the ZAP post goes through, which is a postcode address file, PAF, postcode address file validation, making sure the address is actually valid. And secondly, there's a deceased and gone away check, or deceased and moved away check. So if a recipient falls into one of those two categories, then best to strip that out, which we do by default, and then update Ometria to say, hey, this customer no longer lives at this address, and so they're not going to be receiving any mail in future. Yeah, I think those are the points on that slide.
Okay, great, thank you. So I see tons of creative every single day, and the very best performing mail campaigns are always personalized, relevant, and perfectly timed. The example at the top is from World Travel Holdings. Now, they mail welcome back postcards to travellers when they've just returned from a cruise. It's very human, with the concierge treatment the customer has come to expect. The person featured on the postcard is the exact member of staff who manages all of their bookings. And this approach has resulted in a high amount of repeat bookings. So, for example, one customer returned and booked 3 more cruises from one postcard. Similarly, but different, we've got the super dry example at the bottom, which segments data on a male-female basis. The pearl in the QR takes the recipient straight through to the checkout where their basket is waiting for them.
Thanks, Grace. So those are just a couple of examples. There's more to come in a minute, but in terms of how you're reviewing any marketing spend, but certainly direct mail has been largely expensive and difficult to measure. There's this halo effect that's always going to be very challenging to measure. Until now, the best method has been measuring the return of investment by using test and control groups. And whilst that is still a valid method, the best outcome is a sort of generic understanding of incremental activity. So it's been hard to measure. You can, of course, measure QR code scans. I think we all know that there is a small percentage, as typically we're seeing 1 to 5% of the response is actually as a result of a scan of a QR code, regardless if it's got the UTM tracking and so on. And promotion code usage, typically, depending on the call to action and how crazy the promo is, you can typically see between 10 and 20% of the response just from the promo code use. In other words, it's not enough. So now, through this sort of deep bi-directional integration with Ometria, you've got a very granular return on ad spend reporting available, and it's real time. So I know you as marketeers, if you're sending out an email campaign, you can pretty much rely on an email going out and start to see transactions happening in real time within minutes, ideally. And the same is pretty much true now of direct mail. Of course, the lead time for it to actually arrive with the recipient is longer than with email, but other than that, it's the same principle. So you can now confidently measure and spend measure the spend and your return on a daily basis. And so, but when you're marketing across multiple channels, attribution is always going to be a challenge. Whether you may decide to attribute based on last click or first click or share of click, that's when the more complex challenges surface. But for the direct mail industry, the standard has been for forever and a day has been 100% of the transaction for 42 days post the send date. Now, as a marketing team, you may have a very different view on that, but whatever your view is, however you decide to attribute your marketing channels towards transaction revenue, wherever you land on that, you've got to kind of stick to it for probably a year at least. Otherwise, you haven't got any like for likes to compare to. Because DM direct mail events are real time, the other advantage is that you can now trigger journeys as a direct result of that. And a couple of quick examples here. If a recipient now scans a QR code, you can trigger an email or an SMS directly at the moment they scan that to continue or trigger a new customer journey. And even if let's say a letter is returned sender, so the post comes back into ZAP HQ, we scan it in, and then that can then trigger a new journey of sending an email to that recipient saying, hey, we sent you a letter, it's come back, what's your new address? That way you're continuing to keep your address data up to speed. Grace.
Right, so we've had all of the brilliant tactics, and it's time I showed you how this can all be implemented in real life. So here we've got a really good example from Only Curls, and I worked with the founders Lizzie and Hugo on their in-parcel communications as well as their direct mail strategy. It was all prompted by an initial boom thanks to TikTok, harking back to our conversation at the start about information overloads and digital channels. But they faced a subsequent struggle to re-engage people digitally. So pursuing online channels were sorted, but the offline channels meant that they could add touch points throughout the entire customer journey, ultimately reactivating, re-engaging, but fostering connection all around a shared attribute for their customer base. That, of course, being curly hair. There's a QR at the bottom, so you can give that a scan if you want to read the full story. I'll give you a moment to scan it. And then next up, I have got the artwork to show you. So here is what we sent out for Lizzie and Hugo at Only Curls. It's relatively simple, but under the hood, you can see the personalization, a QR code using a tracked URL, and clear, concise messaging. Now, I really love this example because we've got a dynamic promo in the bottom right-hand corner, which adapts based on the recipient's behavior. In this instance, it performs as a replen notification about their mousse product. It's a perfect strategy for those boomerang products that instantly sell out. Direct mail used to be about catalogues and sharing online subsets of everything to audiences. But this is a signpost via direct mail to get people back online. In this instance, again, it's perfect for the recipient, who we can assume is a busy, curly-haired person who will no doubt hop straight back online, check out the product they've previously set stock alerts for, and bump up their AOV with add-ons too. This particular campaign drove some incredible results. And Andrew, could you please take us through these results, but some others as well?
Yeah, look, the result on this one was utterly crazy, and it's validated by Hugo and Lizzie, but they had a ROAS of 162, which is standout. You would expect us to show you the best and not the worst, right? That's normal, but that is a standout performance for sure. 162 times their spend. There are a few other examples here. I'm just going to flick through really quickly. Lanx is a shoe wear retailer. manufacturer and retailer. They have a 10% conversion rate from one of their campaigns. They also did, and this was new to us as well, in gifting season just gone. They sent an occasion card in an envelope that was not selling anything at all. It was just saying, hey, thanks for being a customer, season's greetings. Oh, and by the way, this is your number of loyalty points that you currently have as of that moment. Their response and their return on that was utterly phenomenal. And they weren't selling anything. Bamboo Clothing, this is another really interesting one where they did a DM campaign to lapsed customers, asking them to refer their friends. And that to me, it felt all wrong. But they, in terms of just those original customers, they had a 14x return on ad spend. We don't know about the new customer acquisition. That was extra out of our vision, if you like. So that was quite an extraordinary campaign where they're marketing to lapsed customers and saying, "Hey, refer your friends." Also, another one is a constant campaign is Spoke, gentleman's apparel business that has constantly a 10% conversion rate on their very clever and slightly quirky designs that they produce. And these are sort of live, ongoing campaigns. Grace.
Okay, so now I've got some stats for you here on sustainability. No media is to be demonized. It all contributes to carbon footprints. And at ZAP, we print on FSC certified paper with biodegradable inks. We are proudly reforesting the world with every ZAP posted, and you can see a very impressive stat on how many trees we've added to the world. Currently, our trees are being planted in Tanzania and Kenya via our partner Veritree. And should any mail get returned to us, it's scanned, shredded by our partners at Shreddit, and it turns back into kitchen roll, which is just crazy and brilliant to think about. Again, there's a QR on here that you can scan if you fancy delving into all things ESG.
Okay, I'm going to take you through, so just a big quick summary between myself and Andrew. So just to highlight what we've discussed initially in terms of the big challenge that we're seeing today, which in our perspective, it's to do with the amount of channels the CRM team has and making sure that you're using the right channels and leveraging opportunities in less expected channels like direct mail, and how we can really make sense of it and use it within the bigger holistic view of your customer base. Traditionally, these channels exist in independent silos, but if you have a customer data platform that can be sort of your unified brain, it will allow you to make the best choice in terms of budget, but also customer experience and really making sure you're reaching customers you'd otherwise be losing. The second point is on digital fatigue and the fact that there are there's a lot of noise out there, and physical mail can really break that noise and reach your customers in a clever, personalized way. So the challenge really is, how do brands maintain a relationship with existing customers who've become unresponsive through traditional digital channels without blowing their marketing budget and remaining authentic and trustworthy? And Andrew will sum up the solution for us.
Nice, thanks. I love that summary, Rita. Thank you. In terms of the solution, let's be clear about this. The Ometria is the brain, and it's your single source of truth, and it should always stay that way. The solution is the integration and the ability for this bi-directional flow of data between the two platforms, which is ultimately enabling sending direct mail as simply as you're now sending email or sending SMSs. It is that simple. One of our other Ometria clients recently alluded to how it used to be a whole team to send out a direct mail piece and various levels of approval and proofing and so on, and all of that has gone away. It's just become incredibly more efficient to send the campaign out, select the audience, and send it out, and it's all in a one and done application. I think the other thing to mention is that the integration enables micro trials. You can send really small volumes of mail on a daily basis, or just a one and done as a test. You can even A/B test different creative, as you can already do with email particularly. And the data cleansing element of this isn't to be underestimated. The fact that once you're constantly, there's a constant flow of data into ZAP, is being cleaned every time, every single submission is then being cleaned, so you end up with enterprise grade data as a result. And in terms of the return, we've alluded to some examples. There are plenty more, by the way, on the ZAP Post website under impact stories if you want to have a look there. I think, as ever, the Ometria is the brain. You can always look at your ROAS according to your attribution methodologies in Ometria. ZAP Post will give you a view of just the direct mail piece, okay, and so how just that piece is performed at a customer level, at a customer ID level, email address, obviously, and at an address level, or all of the above. So you can really start to understand the halo effect as well. And of course, everything is UTM tracked, as you would expect. So Google Analytics will also have a view there as well. How you attribute your spend is obviously your choice, but the reality is there is only a transaction is probably attributed to more than one marketing channel always. So even though in the world of DM, you have a scenario where the history has been that 100% of a transaction is allocated to direct mail, you have the knowledge because you've got the Ometria brain to know that is only partly and always will be partly responsible. So I think that's it. I think we might have lost Rita along the way somewhere, but if there are any questions that we can handle, if there are any questions in there, Grace.
I think we have had a question, yes. We have got a question for you, Andrew, from Kat Handley. Do you run these campaigns within the German market too?
We have a German, yes, in short, we have a German print partner, and so we work with them. But there are minimums that we have to adhere to in the case of the German market. But we can certainly take that one offline. But yes, sure.
Yeah, great. Any other questions? Now's the time, but if not, you have got our emails on screen, and we can pick up on anything you'd like to discuss. So if there is nothing else, then I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time, and for being here, like I said at the very start, for being open to listening about direct mail and how you can use your Ometria. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Rita. And thank you so much for listening.
Thanks all. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.